As the European Union is becoming increasingly irrelevant politically, and both President Macron and then the British PM Starmer come to the White House to meet Donald Trump, they're clearly desperate as they want to continue the war in Ukraine. The EU officials appear to be very much against any peaceful initiatives and are now busy trying to devise ways to continue fear-mongering, to continue warmongering. The EU's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, recently said that the EU nations should provide for their own defenses, but they need partners like the United States, the UK, and Turkey.
I don't think it is wise to totally, shut into ourselves. We need the others. We need Turkey. We need US. We need also other partners, UK industry. So I don't think that flies. But strengthening the European industry is definitely one part of it. And now, it's always, chicken and egg issue. when we hear messages from America that, we don't really care about Europe, then of course it is also the feeling that, okay, but then why should we buy their weapons? Let's have our own. So actually, you're going to lose jobs.
The idea of common European financing was actually initially brought up by none other than Ursula von der Leyen, our good old friend, after the Trump administration indicated that it doesn't really see the EU as an equal partner during peace negotiations with Russia. The gap between the United States and the EU plans was on full display when Kaja Kallas traveled to Washington, D.C. She traveled all the way to Washington, D.C. to meet with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, only to be rejected. In fact, Rubio canceled the meeting last minute, and to top off that slap on the face, a couple of days later, Donald Trump stated, quote, "The EU was created," he said, "to screw the United States." Take a look at that clip.
But I love the countries of Europe. I love all countries, frankly, all different. But the European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. Look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
What will happen in these countries where the EU retaliate?
They can't. They can try.
Not that the EU is largely irrelevant, but it still wants a seat at the table. What does it do? What options does it have left? Well, it now seeks to establish Europe-wide defense funding. With the United States being the backbone of NATO, of course, Europe is getting antsy because it's afraid that the US might pull that funding. US President Trump is demanding that European NATO allies increase their defense spending to 5% of their respective GDP, much higher, of course, than the current target of only 2%. Or, he says, you can keep it as is and risk losing US protection. The Financial Times recently reported that the British Finance Minister, Rachel Reeves, was set to hold talks with other European finance ministers at the G20 meeting in Cape Town. Andrzej Domanski, who is a Polish finance minister, said the funding could be done via a separate bank or even a separate fund. They are considering creating a rearmament bank, believe it or not, which means that if you are in the EU, your government spending is likely to be diverted to imaginary fear-mongering programs rather than the programs that you and your family need for your everyday lives. And there is a brilliant idea, quote unquote, to set up a rearmament bank. So let's talk about that. British General Nick Carter, who is the former head of the British Army, actually suggested setting up a rearmament bank, which will allow the EU to tap into Europe's savings pool. This bank will be modeled after the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, which, as you might remember, was set up to support Central and Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. So nothing to see here. This is an old concept, although now this is nothing short of a desperate, self-harming idea, to say the least. Well, in turn, the UK Treasury actually rushed to make it clear that Reeves would, quote, raise defense funding proposals with their European counterparts at the G20 meeting. This, of course, is very much aligned with Starmer's commentary that he made during his visit to the White House. Starmer said that the UK is ready to have boots on the ground and planes in the air. The UK is all in, he said.
And fair. That Ukraine will help shape, that's backed by strength, to stop Putin coming back for more. Now, I'm working closely with other European leaders on this, and I'm clear that the UK is ready to put boots on the ground and planes in the air to support a deal, working together with our allies, because that is the only way that peace will last. Mr. President, in this new era, you're also right that Europe must step up. And let me tell you now, I see the growing threats we face, and so the UK is all in. This year we'll be giving more military aid to Ukraine than ever, and just this week I've set out how we're shouldering more of the security burden. We're already one of the biggest spenders in NATO, and now
the desire to spend more on defense, driven by clearly imaginary threats, is very difficult to explain, in fact. European countries are not doing very well economically. Germany's economy has been contracting for years now. It's never recovered from the 2019 crisis. Of course, the country's manufacturing moved overseas, and high energy costs bankrupted whoever was left. The UK experienced economic stagnation in the second half of 2024. The forecast for the 2025 year is not very good. It actually was downgraded to just 1% growth from 1.5% growth. France is not an exception on this list either. The country is confronting several significant economic challenges, including high public debt, fiscal deficits, political instability. Yet they can't wait to increase their defense spending. The EU Commission said it would lift EU financial rules to even allow countries to invest in defense, which will drive their national debt up. It will increase their national debt without anybody there to stop this. The next step is for the EU leaders to discuss common defense needs, and of course they're on track to do so. They plan to meet at the end of March. War has been a very profitable business, and the EU is desperately clinging onto the manufactured narratives that actually allowed them to fund Zelensky for 3 years, causing thousands of deaths, both Ukrainian and Russian. Yet its political irrelevance makes EU leaders quite obviously desperate, as instead of aligning with the new expectations of the Trump administration, they keep insisting on continuing the game that they have already very clearly lost. Let me know what you think about these new EU ideas. Do you support them? Maybe you don't, maybe you do. Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to show your support. It goes a long way. Like, subscribe, and share. Support my channel. It really means a lot. And I will see you back here tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.